The biggest criticism I get when I express my opinion about how I dislike the show Game of Thrones is that it's just an adaptation. They have to change things. That's what they have to do. This isn't a book, this is a television production, and by the very nature of the art, you have to change things. And that statement is true. It's correct. There's nothing wrong with that statement. Now, this is the reason that I'm not furious that Peeves isn't in Harry Potter. That's why I'm not, frustrated and shouting from the rooftops that the Avox aren't in the Hunger Games movies. Or why the Dursleys aren't blonde, or any number of things. These things happen, and adaptation is just that. It's a representation. It's one artist's take on another artist's work in another medium. Of course, things have to be altered and adapted, fit to time constraints, fit pacing, simply contemporize the story. However, there is a difference, and it's a key difference, between adapting a work and altering a work. It's the difference between leaving Peeves out and leaving Ron Weasley out. It's the difference between omitting the Avox and cutting Rue because her story didn't go anywhere. This difference is a proverbial line in the sand. And when it comes to A Song of Ice and Fire, that line has not only been crossed, it has been stomped on, trodden over, kicked, erased, and a sandcastle has been built on the ground where it once lay. There's so much to complain about, it's really hard for people to pick their battles. And that's where you can see the whiny book fan caricature begin to form. Of course, it's ridiculous that people like Brynden Tully, or Lady Stoneheart, or Strong Belwas, Wyman Manderley, Patchface, Ariane Martell, Victorian Greyjoy, the Valonqar, Cold Hands, Little Walder, Big Walder, and Illyrio were cut from the story. But when you get down to it, when you're trying to adapt a 1,300-page book into a 10-hour season, some things, even important things, have to be cut. And complaining about those constantly is bound to get on people's nerves. Get over it, nerd, is the natural response to that, and if I weren't so passionate about the series, I would probably be saying the same thing. It's really hard to blame that reaction. Now, those omissions that I mentioned, they're disappointing, bad even, but they aren't what's wrong with the show. The problem with the show is this clip I found from inside the episode from season 5.
She does a great job getting rid of that costume and getting rid of her money and getting rid of the coin, but Needle was a very, very special gift. She sees herself as an instrument of revenge in many ways in this world, and that sword is the way she's going to exact the revenge on the people who wronged her family. It's the instrument of that revenge. Letting go of Needle would really be letting go of Arya Stark, and the fact that she can't let go of Needle makes it clear to us that she's not at all ready to be no one.
The problem with this show is that its writers and creators fundamentally misunderstand the most basic motivations and traits of its characters and have entirely misinterpreted the intent of the artists whose work they are adapting. If you look at Needle and you see a sword, a tool of revenge, I'm sorry, but you have completely missed the point of Arya's character. She's not hesitant to lose Needle because, oh no, how will I stab people now? She doesn't want to lose it because her big brother gave it to her. Because she sees Jon's face and its steel. She sees Winterfell and the time she would play with Bran in the Godswood. She sees Nymeria, who she had to abandon in the Riverlands. And most of all, she sees herself. At this point, Arya doesn't know who she is anymore. In order to survive, she's had to become different people. Arya the orphan boy, Nan and Weasel, Squab, Salty, Cat, Beth, Mercy, the ugly girl. There are times when she wonders whether or not Arya was just a dream she had, but when she looks at Needle, she remembers. She is a Stark of Winterfell. This is the show's fundamental problem. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss do not understand A Song of Ice and Fire. They look at Needle and they see a sword Arya would like to use to kill Cersei. They see Stannis and see a man mad with power and ambition, rather than a man bound by honor and duty to take his rightful place on the throne. They look at Sansa and see a damsel in distress, rather than a young girl slowly learning to become a player of the Game of Thrones. They look at Littlefinger and see a mustache-twirling villain, rather than a subtle manipulator. They look at the Sand Snakes and see boobs with swords, rather than capable warriors fighting for their father and country. They look at Daenerys and see Jesus come again, rather than a young girl trying to learn to be a good person and leader, yet failing at every step. It's so easy to complain about superficial changes. I'm guilty of it, because yes, they are annoying and the books are so wonderful, but it's wrong to look only there. To look below the surface and see the real disease festering, that's how you begin to fix the problem. Or at the very least, you might get someone to listen.